So we are going to present CGR or lysosomal storage disorders, which are rare disorders. And we have included those disorders which are primarily diagnosed on bone marrow biopsy. Lysosomal storage disorders are a group of over 70 disorders that are characterized by lysosomal dysfunction. Lysosomes are membrane enclosed cytoplasmic organelles, and these are key cellular hub for catabolism and recycling of macromolecules. If there is any defect in the enzyme involved in the catabolism and recycling, it causes accumulation of undigested or partially digested macromolecules in the lysosomes of the macrophages of reticuloendothelial cell system, and these are called storage cells. This accumulated material may be cellular debris, undigested protein, fat, carbohydrate, or complex lipids. This substrate accumulation leads to organ damage, manifesting as enlargement of liver and often massive enlargement of the spleen. These are a group of over 70 rare diseases that are characterized by, these are rare diseases with the incidence of approximately 1 in 40 to 60,000 live births. Most of these are inherited as autosomal recessive traits, and they are typically present in infancy and childhood, although adult onset forms may also occur. The detection of storage cells in the biopsy samples is not required for diagnostic purpose. However, it is often the first step prompting further investigation in these patients. In fact, primary diagnosis is still made on bone marrow or liver biopsy or histology of surgically removed spleen in approximately 60% of these patients. The most prevalent presenting phenotype is splenohepatomegaly, and the common differential diagnosis include hemolytic anemia, typically hemoglobinopathies, non-cirrhotic portal hypertension, tropical splenomegaly, and lymphoreticular malignancies. So we are going to present our past 10-year experience of these rare disorders. This will be done as an overview of lysosomal storage disorders, which will be presented by Dr. Saima, our third-year resident. Then we will present our experience, which will be presented by Dr. Nilay, our SR, followed by management of these disorders by Dr. Neha Agrawal, who is SR in Department of Genetics, and finally the conclusion. So I invite Dr. Saima to present the overview.
Thank you, ma'am, and good morning, everyone. So lysosomal storage disorders are the consequence of an abnormal storage of undigested cellular debris, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and nucleic acids within the cells. Ashkenazi Jews are the most affected population. However, considering the large population and frequent consanguineous marriages in some communities, incidence of lysosomal storage disorders is likely to be high in India as well. And most of these are inherited as an autosomal recessive trait. So these lysosomes are the cell's digestive system, which contain a battery of hydrolytic enzymes known as acid hydrolases with two special properties. First, of being functional only in the acidic milieu of the lysosomes, and secondly, being exclusive for the intracellular digestion of the organelles. And these two features are maintained by a glycocalyx coating that guards against autodigestion. Approximately 70 lysosomal storage disorders have been identified and classified based on the enzyme deficiency and consequent accumulation of the metabolic intermediate. So this is a classification of lysosomal storage disorders, and it is based on the accumulation of the metabolic substrate. And it is as follows. We have sphingolipidosis, mucopolysaccharidosis, mucolipidosis, glycoproteinosis, glycogen storage disorders, and lipid storage disorders. Amongst these, Gaucher and Niemann-Pick are the most common sphingolipidosis, about which we shall be talking today. So, albeit rare, these rare disorders can be involved in the etiology of several more common diseases, like the carrier state for Gaucher disease is an important risk factor for developing Parkinson's, and Niemann-Pick disease type C can also increase the risk for Alzheimer's. Such an interconnectedness stems from the multifunctional nature of the lysosomes, of autophagy, immunity, and membrane repair. So like all secretory proteins, which are synthesized in the rough endoplasmic reticulum, so are the lysosomal enzyme proteins. And these are then shipped off to the Golgi apparatus. Here they attach with the mannose 6-phosphate receptor, which facilitates the recognition of these lysosomal enzyme proteins by the inner membrane of the Golgi apparatus. They are then pinched off into a vesicle and shipped to the lysosome. Here, this fusion enables the lysosome to carry out its two major functions of autophagy, that is digesting the redundant or the unwanted intracellular substances, or phagocytosis heterophagy, that is digestion of the extracellular material. So a complex substrate basically can have two fates. In case the enzyme machinery is intact, it will cause normal lysosomal degradation, leading to the end products as small diffusible products. However, if there is a lysosomal enzyme deficiency, it can lead to stored non-metabolized products, which is known as primary storage. This will be followed by defective fusion of the autophagosome with the lysosome and defective degradation of the intracellular organelles, which in turn leads to accumulation of toxic proteins and aberrant mitochondria. This further perpetuates cell damage and free radical generation, thereafter causing cell death. These accumulated products can be seen in various morphological forms like floccular granular, lipid whorls, zebra bodies, or as autophagic vacuoles. So the distribution of the stored material and the consequent involvement of the organ is determined by two interrelated factors: tissue where the material to be degraded is found, and location where most of the degradation occurs. So various cells have been known to contain these lysosomal related organelles, which function pretty much like the lysosome. So here the accumulation of unmetabolized products can occur and lead to various manifestations of the disease. For example, we have melanocytes, where an accumulation of the substrate in the melanosomes can lead to ocular and cutaneous hypopigmentation. Mast cells and basophils have basophilic granules, where accumulation of the substrate can lead to immune deficiency and allergies, and so forth. Importantly for us, if there is accumulation of the substrate in the alpha or delta granules or the azurophilic granules of the blood cells, it would mean involvement of the bone marrow, and the patient can present with bleeding disorders, neutropenia, and anemia. So sphingolipidosis encompasses Gaucher, Niemann-Pick, Tay-Sachs, and Fabry diseases, which were amongst the first lysosomal storage disorders to be described. A shared histological feature of these is the presence of highly vacuolated cells with a foamy appearance. Each of the sphingolipidosis is associated with a specific lysosomal hydrolase deficiency. For instance, Gaucher disease has a deficiency of beta-glucocerebrosidase, leading to accumulation of glucocerebroside. Niemann-Pick disease A and B have deficiency of sphingomyelinase, leading to accumulation of sphingomyelin. In Tay-Sachs disease, there is deficiency of beta-hexosaminidase AB, leading to accumulation of GM2. And Fabry's is characterized by deficiency of alpha-galactosidase, leading to accumulation of globotriaosylceramide. Moving on to Gaucher disease, this is a multi-system chronic disorder, involves the liver, spleen, bone marrow, and lymph nodes with a familial aggregation. Three major forms of this disease have been recognized based on the age of onset, clinical signs and rate of progression, and the presence or absence of a neurological disease. So the pathogenesis is as follows. Glucocerebroside is a glycolipid which is present in the cell membranes. And when the cell undergoes senescence, it is engulfed by macrophages, which is equipped with lysosomes to cause enzymatic digestion of the macromolecule. So for the digestion of glucocerebroside, the enzyme is beta-glucocerebrosidase, which is encoded by the GBA gene. This leads to breakdown of the metabolic product. However, if there is a GBA gene mutation, it can lead to reduced or absent glucocerebrosidase activity, thereby causing accumulation of glucocerebroside in the lysosomes and causing accumulation of lipid-laden cells in the liver, spleen, and bone marrow, which have the characteristic crumpled tissue paper appearance, also known as the Gaucher cells. So Gaucher disease type 1 is a non-neuronopathic form which is seen in infants, adolescents, and adults. So the patients can present with growth retardation, failure to thrive, delayed puberty, hepatosplenomegaly. Some patients can also have a Gaucheroma, and these also have an increased risk of developing chronic cholecystitis and cholelithiasis. Bone marrow involvement can present as mucocutaneous bleeding due to thrombocytopenia and anemia, and patients are also predisposed to infections due to neutropenia. Bone infarctions and crisis, that is painful attacks, can occur, and finally repeated attacks of such can lead to osteoporosis. And the characteristic Erlenmeyer-Flass deformity of the femur is seen in 40 to 60% of the cases, wherein there is reduced constriction of the diaphysis with flaring of the metaphysis. There can also be infiltration of the lung by Gaucher cells, giving a radiological impression of interstitial lung disease. Gaucher disease type 2 is the acute neuronopathic form and is characterized by severe neurological involvement early in life due to glucocerebroside buildup in brain. It has a triad of opisthotonus, nystagmus, and difficulty to feed. So in addition to the symptoms seen in type 1, the patients have loss of motor skills, hypotonia, muscle spasms, and difficulty in deglutition, which leads to severe breathing and feeding difficulties, and patients succumb to death in their initial years. Gaucher disease type 3 is the chronic neuronopathic form, which is pretty much like type 2, except that the symptoms develop at a slower rate, which is why the patients are seen surviving up to their 5th to 6th decade. Here is a comparison of the major clinical phenotypes and shows that type 1 is the most common and is seen mostly in Ashkenazi Jews, where the children or adults present with mild to severe hepatosplenomegaly and skeletal disease. However, neurodegeneration is absent. Type 2 is pan-ethnic but the least prevalent form, and infants will present with moderate hepatosplenomegaly, minimal skeletal disease, but marked neurodegeneration. Type 3 is most commonly seen in the Swedish community and is also the most common type of Gaucher disease in Indians. Children or adolescents present with mild to severe hepatosplenomegaly and skeletal disease, and neurodegeneration can be variable. So it may seem convenient and prudent to classify the disorder into 3 major types, but a biological process is best described as a continuum of clinical phenotypes. So patients with an asymptomatic disease or with skeletal, visceral, or Parkinsonian manifestations, along with other secondary neurological features, can be grouped under type 1. And progression on the neurological spectrum, along with cardiac valve calcifications, can roughly place them under type 3. And if they move up the ladder in case of neurological degeneration, or even present as hydrops fetalis, they can be grouped under type 2. Another lysosomal storage disorder is the Niemann-Pick disease. So type A and type B have a similar genetic profile and are characterized by a missense mutation in sphingomyelin phosphodiesterase 1, that is the SMPD1 gene, leading to accumulation of sphingomyelin and its precursors in the macrophages. Whereas Niemann-Pick disease type C is characterized by NPC1 or 2 gene mutations, which leads to an abnormal or defective formation of proteins, causing lipid accumulation in cells due to impaired lipid efflux. So the pathogenesis of Niemann-Pick disease A or B is as follows. Sphingomyelin, as we know, is an important component of the cell membrane, and senescence, as usual, causes phagocytosis by the macrophage, where these lysosomes ensure breakdown of the accumulated substrates, and this is carried out by an enzyme known as the acid sphingomyelinase. This is a gene product of the SMPD1 gene. So in case of SMPD1 gene mutation, there can be reduced or absent activity of the acid sphingomyelinase, leading to accumulation of sphingomyelin in the lysosomes of the macrophages. So Niemann-Pick disease type A has complete absence, whereas B has residual activity of acid sphingomyelinase. Which is why we see that Niemann-Pick disease type A presents early has early onset and is quite life-threatening. Patients present with hepatosplenomegaly, jaundice, feeding difficulties, loss of reflexes in muscle tone, interstitial lung disease, and the characteristic ophthalmologic finding is a cherry red spot which affects macula, reducing central vision. On the contrary, Niemann-Pick disease type B can occur any time in life and is less severe. Patients have a variable clinical presentation and are diagnosed in infancy or childhood, mainly due to hepatosplenomegaly noted on routine examination. Chest X-ray reveals diffuse reticular or finely nodular infiltration in the lung parenchyma, and significant pancytopenia is noted due to secondary hypersplenism. Cholesterol abnormalities in the form of high LDL and total cholesterol are seen, and neurological involvements are also noted. So the pathogenesis of Niemann-Pick disease type C differs and is as follows. Cholesterol reaches the cell packed as lipoproteins, which binds to the LDL receptor, which is present on the cell membrane. So this binding causes the entry of the lipoprotein, where it first reaches the early endosome, which matures into the late endosome, and finally into the lysosome. Over here, the NPC2 gene product binds to the cholesterol and transports it to the lysosomal membrane. Here, the NPC1 gene product binds to it, which is a glycoprotein, which carries it out of the lysosome into the cell. So in case there is an NPC1 or 2 gene mutation, it leads to an impaired intracellular cholesterol transport and causing cholesterol accumulation in lysosomes, leading to the formation of these lipid-laden foam cells. So Niemann-Pick disease type C can present at any stage of life. An early infantile onset will be characterized by hypotonia, delayed developmental motor milestones, and jaundice. Infants and children can present with clumsiness, learning difficulties, unsteady gait, difficulty in swallowing, slurred speech, seizures, or even cataplexy. Teenagers and adults have psychiatric symptoms and along with progressive cognitive impairment. Later on, these patients may lose the ability to talk, walk, and swallow, and finally respiratory failure ensues, leading to death. So the diagnosis of lysosomal storage disorders is multifaceted and begins by eliciting a clinical history of organomegaly, easy bruising and bone pain, morphological diagnosis on bone marrow or tissue biopsy, enzyme studies, which involves demonstrating the deficient enzyme in the particular disorder, gene mutation analysis for genotype-phenotype correlation, carrier identification, which can be achieved by enzyme assay and targeted sequencing analysis, and prenatal testing from chorionic villi or cultured amniotic fluid cells. So primary diagnosis and screening requires demonstration of the accumulated primary substrate or deficient enzyme activity and can be performed in any of the following patient samples, such as blood, urine, amniotic fluid, cultured skin fibroblasts, and tissue biopsies. Disease monitoring, however, can be done by following the secondary biochemical changes to look for the evidence of disease progression or response to treatment. And it includes a complete hemogram along with a coagulation profile, liver function tests, serum calcium, 25-hydroxyvitamin D, biomarkers like chiotriiosidase and ferritin, an assessment of liver and spleen size, along with bone density by MRI. Enzyme studies, so in Gaucher disease, there will be deficiency of acid beta glucocerebrosidase in the blood leukocytes. And patients with Gaucher disease have an enzyme activity less than 10% of the controls. Samples can be collected in EDTA or heparin, or can also vials, or can be also sent as dried blood spots. In case there is an ambiguity with the blood reports, cultured skin fibroblasts can also be used. Niemann-Pick disease has a deficiency of acid sphingomyelinase. Niemann-Pick disease A and B have 1 to 10% of the normal activity, and Niemann-Pick disease type C has 50 to 75% of the normal activity. A special stain can be used to demonstrate accumulated substrate in the diagnosis of Niemann-Pick disease type C, which is philippin. So this is a fluorescent chemical compound isolated from Streptomyces philippinensis. Skin fibroblasts are cultured in cholesterol deficient medium and incubated for 24 hours in the LDL enriched medium. So here you can see that these are cells from the healthy control and show no fluorescence. However, a characteristic perinuclear fluorescence is noted in cases of Niemann-Pick disease type C. In our histopathology division, we also receive biopsy tissues of liver or lung, or also splenectomy specimens with the following distinctive features. Gaucher cells are seen in Gaucher disease and have crumpled tissue paper or watered silk appearance with an eccentrically located hyperchromatic nuclei. And foam cells are noted in Niemann-Pick disease, which contain these lipid-laden vacuoles. So at the end of all of this, molecular diagnosis still remains the confirmatory modality as it enables us to prognosticate and to carry out carrier testing and prenatal diagnosis. N370S is the most common and mildest GBA mutation, and it accurately predicts type 1 Gaucher disease. In Indians, L444P mutation is more common, and homozygosity is associated with neuronopathic disease type 2 or 3. In Niemann-Pick disease, mutations in NPD1 gene, which cause Niemann-Pick disease type A, are A482E and Y467S, and the ones which cause Niemann-Pick disease type B are R608 deletion. Amongst Indians, the most common mutation is on cDNA, where C is replaced by T at position 1624. Now I call upon Dr. Nile to discuss our experience of lysosomal storage disorders over the past 1 decade. Thank you.
Thank you, Saima, and good morning, one and all. We had received a total of 19,817 bone marrow aspirates in the last 10 years, out of which 32 were diagnosed as lysosomal storage disorders, accounting for 0.16% cases. Of these 32, 4 had hepatic involvement and 1 had pulmonary involvement as well. The age ranged from 1 month to 8 years with a mean age of 33 months. Majority of the patients were less than 2 years of age, and approximately 80% of the patients were below the age of 4 years. Out of these 32 cases, 19 were morphologically diagnosed as Niemann-Pick disease and 13 were morphologically diagnosed as Gaucher disease on bone marrow. The overall male to female ratio was similar in both the disease categories and showed a slight male predominance. Abdominal distension and failure to thrive were the most common presenting complaints in both these storage disorders. Developmental delay was noted in 8 cases of Niemann-Pick disease and 3 cases of Gaucher disease. History of consanguineous marriage was present in 8 cases, while a history of siblings suffering from similar illness was present in 6 cases. Moderate hepatomegaly and marked splenomegaly were the most frequent examination findings in these disorders. Neurological manifestation was noted in 1 case of each of these disease categories. The case of Niemann-Pick disease had marked hypotonia, while the patient with Gaucher disease had exacerbated deep tendon reflexes. 2 cases of each of these diseases had musculoskeletal disease. Under the category of Niemann-Pick disease, the first patient had prominent costochondral junction, while the second patient had bullet-shaped phalanges and anterior beaking of vertebrae. Both the patients of Gaucher disease had pectus carinatum. In the second case, the second case in addition also had scoliosis, torticollis, Thecketic rosary, Harrison's sulcus, and short intervertebral space. Approximately 1/3 patients of Niemann-Pick disease had pulmonary involvement, which was evident radiologically in the form of reticulonodular infiltrate or ground gas opacities. 2 patients of Niemann-Pick disease had cardiovalvular abnormality in the form of ostium secundum atrial septal defect. 6 patients of Gaucher Niemann-Pick disease had ophthalmic involvement and all had bilateral cherry red spots. while the case of Gaucher disease had squint. Anemia and thrombocytopenia were the most common hematological findings in both these disease categories. Approximately 80% of the patients presented either with bicytopenia or pancytopenia, and leukocytosis was relatively uncommon in these disease categories. In addition, increased prothrombin time and INR was noted in 6 cases of Niemann-Pick disease and 4 cases of Gaucher disease. On biochemical examination, 28 out of 32 patients showed deranged liver profile in the form of elevated direct bilirubin and liver enzymes. The total bilirubin ranged from 0.3 to 25 milligram per deciliter, and 9 patients showed hyperbilirubinemia. Increased alkaline phosphatase was noted in 18 patients of Niemann-Pick disease and 7 patients of Gaucher disease. Also, approximately 25% of the patients in both these disease categories had decreased serum calcium. In 18 out of 32 patients, enzyme levels for sphingomyelinase and beta-glucosidase was available. The morphological diagnosis was confirmed by enzyme analysis in 11 cases of Niemann-Pick disease and 7 cases of Gaucher disease. Now, lysosomal storage disorders are rare entities that have been mostly reported as individual case reports. We could find only one study which is similar to ours, which is authored by Pradhan et al., published in 2017. Here is a comparative analysis between the two. Pradhan et al. Conducted this study at PGI Chandigarh over a period of 12 years and included 55 cases. The percentage of cases diagnosed as Niemann-Pick disease, Gaucher disease, and the age range are comparable in both these studies. The male to female ratio was, the present literature states that there is no gender predilection between both these disease categories, which is reflected in our study. However, Pradhan et al. Documented a higher male involvement. Abdominal distension and hepatosplenomegaly were the most common presenting findings in both these diseases. Developmental delay was predominantly noted in the patients of Niemann-Pick disease and was documented by both these studies. We report a higher number of patients presenting with anemia in Niemann-Pick disease as compared to the other study. However, this percentage was similar in Gaucher disease. Leukopenia and thrombocytopenia were most commonly seen in both the disease categories in our study as compared to the other study. Now let's discuss a few of the cases to have a better understanding of these disorders. Now the first case is of a 6-year-old female child who had febrile illness with loss of appetite, loss of weight, and hepatosplenomegaly 3 years ago. She was managed conservatively and recovered gradually. However, hepatosplenomegaly persisted and she was referred to the Department of Pediatric Gastroenterology for further evaluation. She had no history of recurrence of fever or respiratory tract infection, jaundice, ascites, bleeding, or coagulopathy. She was the first-born child to a non-consanguineously married couple with non-significant family history. Her developmental milestones were normal. On examination, she was underweight and her height was decreased for age. Her abdominal examination showed shocked abdomen with firm liver, which was palpable 5 centimeters below the right costal margin. Spleen was palpable 8 centimeters below the left costal margin, and other systemic examination were within normal limit. Hematological investigations revealed moderate anemia with leukopenia, with a fall in red cell indices as well as a decrease in serum iron. The liver enzymes were elevated. Chest X-ray revealed reticulonodular infiltrate in the lung. HPLC was normal. So with a clinical diagnosis of storage disorder with concomitant respiratory tract infection, the patient was planned for bone marrow examination. The peripheral smear shows reduced red cell density with microcytic hypochromic red cells, leukopenia, and thrombocytopenia. In the center, we can appreciate this is a lymphocyte which is eccentrically located nucleus and condensed chromatin and intracytoplasmic vacuolations. Now, this is a very rare finding which might suggest or give a clue to the diagnosis of storage disorder. The bone marrow aspirate smears show normal hematopoietic elements with interspersed large foamy macrophages with central to eccentric nucleus and pale blue cytoplasm with numerous clear vacuolations giving a soap bubble appearance. The bone marrow biopsy shows sheets and large aggregates of these Niemann-Pick cells. On higher magnification, these Niemann-Pick cells have round to oval nucleus and intracytoplasmic vacuolations imparting a soap bubble appearance. Simultaneously, we had also received liver biopsy, which shows infiltration of these Niemann-Pick cells in the hepatic parenchyma as well as in the portal tract, causing an expansion of the portal tract. PAS stain or periodic acid shift stain was performed to delineate between these two cells. Now, hepatocytes are glycogen rich and hence are strongly positive for PAS stain, while the Niemann-Pick cells are negative for PAS stain. Further electron microscopy was attempted on formalin-fixed paraffin-embedded liver tissue, which shows an ultrastructure of Kupffer cells, which shows multiple vacuolations. On higher magnification, we can see these membrane-bound organelles, which are the lysosomes with intralysosomal electron-dense lamellated inclusion, which is a characteristic of Niemann-Pick disease. Upon enzyme analysis, he was found to be deficient for sphingomyelinase and normal level of hexosaminidase B, which rules of Sandoff disease. Therefore, a final diagnosis of Niemann-Pick disease type B was rendered. She was referred to the Department of Medical Genetics for appropriate management and was followed up for the period of 4 months, and thereafter she was lost to follow-up. The second case is of a 3-month-old infant who presented to the Department of Pediatric Gastroenterology with high-grade fever and upper abdominal distension for 20 days. He had associated with he had history of fast breathing as well as lethargy with no history of jaundice, periarterial swelling, or decreased urine output. He was a fourth-born child to a non-consanguineously married couple. He was previously treated for similar complaints at a private hospital in Gorakhpur. On examination, his weight and length was appropriate for age. However, pallor was present with multiple ecchymotic patches all over the body. Per-abdominal examination revealed soft abdomen with firm liver, and which was palpable 8 centimeters below the right costal margin, and spleen was palpable 9 centimeters below the left costal margin. All the other systemic examination was within normal limit. Hematological examination revealed severe anemia with moderate thrombocytopenia with an increase in serum ferritin, prothrombin time, and serum procalcitonin. There was an increase in total bilirubin and conjugated bilirubin with increased in liver enzymes, alpha-fetoprotein, and lactate dehydrogenase. Serum protein, serum albumin, and serum calcium were decreased. On chest X-ray, bilateral ground glass opacities were noted, which is suggestive of pneumonia. With a clinical diagnosis of sepsis-induced HLH, the patient was planned for bone marrow examination, which was suggestive of Niemann-Pick disease, and enzyme analysis was advised. The patient was continued on high-end antibiotic. However, his condition worsened and he developed DIC, and subsequently he succumbed to his illness. We had received post-mortem lung biopsy, which shows dilated alveolar spaces. These are the dilated alveolar spaces with infiltration of storage cells in the interstitium. On higher magnification, these storage cells have an eccentrically located pyknotic nucleus with intracytoplasmic vacuolations imparting a soap bubble appearance. The third case is of a 2-year-old female child who presented to the Department of Pediatric Gastroenterology with progressive abdominal distension from 3 months of age with failure to thrive. She had no history of jaundice, early morning irritability, vomiting, petechiae or fever, lethargy, or refusal of feeds. She was a third-born child to a third-degree consanguineously married couple with a history of sibling death and ischemic illness. She had global delay. She was previously admitted in a local hospital for similar complaints and was managed conservatively. Her weight and height was decreased for age with presence of pallor. Per-abdominal examination revealed soft abdomen, and liver was firm in consistency and was palpable 6 centimeters below the right costal margin, and spleen was palpable 12 centimeters below the left costal margin. Other systemic examination were within normal limit. Hematological investigations revealed moderate anemia with moderate thrombocytopenia. Biochemical investigations show a decrease in 25-hydroxyvitamin D. In view of hepatosplenomegaly and bicytopenia, the patient underwent bone marrow examination. The bone marrow aspirate smear shows aggregates of Gaucher cells with interspersed normal hematopoietic elements. These Gaucher cells are large, round to oval cells with eccentric nucleus and weakly basophilic cytoplasm, abundant weakly basophilic cytoplasm, imparting a crumpled tissue paper appearance. The bone marrow biopsy smear shows cellular marrow spaces with infiltration by Gaucher cells. On higher magnification, these Gaucher cells are round to oval cells with eccentrically located vesicular nucleus and abundant eosinophilic cytoplasm, imparting a crumpled tissue paper appearance. This is an ultrastructure of a Gaucher cells taken from an article published in Translation Sciences of Rare Diseases, which shows the lysosomes with branching tubular profiles. Further, the patient underwent enzyme analysis and was found to have decreased level of beta-glucosidase level. Therefore, a diagnosis of Gaucher disease was rendered. She was referred to the to the Department of Medical Genetics for further management. She was followed up for a period of 6 months, and thereafter she was lost to follow-up. Now, I would like to call upon Dr. Neha from the Department of Medical Genetics to give an overview of the management of these disorders.
Thank you everyone for giving me this opportunity to share our experience regarding management of Gaucher disease. Clinical spectrum and pathogenesis has been already discussed by Dr. Saima. I will deal with the diagnosis and the treatment part. Three modalities are there for the diagnosis. First is enzyme assay. It is the gold standard. It is done by measuring the beta-glucocerebrosidase enzyme assay in the blood leukocyte. In this, the synthetic fluorogenic substrate 4-methyl-amylylferryl delta B glycopyronosite, also known as 4-MU, is used. After incubation, enzyme reaction is stopped by adding the glycine carbonate buffer to the tubes, and the fluorescence is measured against the 4-MU standard curve. In this, the absence of enzyme, the artificial substrate cannot be cleaved and 4-MU is not released. Thus, the leukocyte activity is measured by the difference of the fluorescence of the samples and the blank tubes divided by the milligram protein per assay and the fluorescence of the 4-MU substrate. Gaucher disease patients have levels of less than 10% of that present in the control samples. In our department, in the last 3 years, beta-glucocerebrosidase enzyme assay were done in 40 patients, and in the 7 patients, the diagnosis was confirmed as a Gaucher disease. Molecular testing was done to identify the GBA mutation to confirm the diagnosis. It also aids in the prognostication, carrier testing, and the prenatal diagnosis. The role of tissue biopsy was already discussed by the Dr. Saima. As we all know that it is inherited in an autosomal recessive manner, recurrence risk in the sibling is 25%. Though the treatment is available, due to its cost and the availability, many couples have opted for the prenatal diagnosis. It can be provided by chorionic villus sampling at the 11 to 14 weeks or by the amniocentesis at the 16 weeks onwards using the molecular gene testing when the both pathogenic variants in the family are known, or by the glucocerebrosidase enzyme activity with when one or none of the pathogenic variant is known in the family. In the management, three main strategies are enzyme replacement therapy, substrate reduction therapy, and the bone marrow transplantation. Enzyme replacement therapy is well tolerated and provide a sufficient exogenous enzyme to overcome the block in the catabolic pathway thus clearing the substrate B, while the substrate reduction therapy restores the metabolic homeostasis by limiting the amount of the substrate precursor A, thus help in the clearing the substrate B, that is glucose erythrocyte, by the residual enzyme. Bone marrow transplantation have been largely superseded by the enzyme replacement therapy and the substrate reduction therapy. In the patients where the enzyme replacement therapy or the substrate reduction therapy is not available, or when the in the patients with the chronic diseases where the HLA matching is available, bone marrow transplantation can be done as a single or a multimodal therapy. Enzyme replacement therapy for Gaucher disease was approved by the FDA in 1991, and this has modified the natural history of the Gaucher disease. And patients treated regularly with enzyme replacement therapy during childhood achieve a normal percentile of growth and have a lesser complications. This utilizes in the Gaucher type 1 and type 3 diseases. And treatment includes a modified form of glucose erythrosidase by IV infusion every 2 weeks. 3 drugs are available: imiglucidase, velaglucidase alpha, and the teliglucidase alpha. While the substrate reduction therapy helps in the visceral and the hematological complication of the mild diseases, 2 drugs are available: miglustat and eliglustat. And current studies show that the miglustat is useful in most patients with only mild diseases. In India, patients with Gaucher disease are more severely affected than in the West, both in the manifestation and the onset. ERT with the imiglucidase has been used in India since last 15 years, and it has been found to be highly effective and safe, with marked reversal of growth, decrease in the skeletal abnormalities, decrease in the liver and spleen size, and decrease the other symptoms like the abnormal counts also. This paper was published in 2018, and this shows the consensus guidelines in the diagnosis and management of Gaucher disease in India. Till this paper was written, there are more than 75 patients have been received therapy with imiglucidase successfully. Currently, now in our department, 8 patients were enrolled. 8 patients are enrolled for the treatment receiving the substrate reduction therapy and the enzyme replacement therapy. Majority are receiving the imiglucidase, while 2 are on the velaglucidase alpha and 1 is getting the teliglucidase. 1 patient previously getting the imiglucidase, but afterwards shifted to the substrate reduction therapy miglustat. And more than half of the patients are receiving treatment since 12 years successfully. Now coming to the outcome of the enzyme replacement therapy and the substrate reduction therapy. Height and weight is improved dramatically in our all 8 patients. While the spleen size is markedly decreased in all patients, except 1 where after reduction of the spleen size, there is again enlargement in the spleen size. This case will be discussed later. Along with the improvement in the height clinical parameters, there is also improvement in the hemoglobin and platelet count. As we can see that within 1 year of treatment, there is dramatically improvement in the hemoglobin and platelet count. Chitotriosidase is a biomarker which is used to monitor the patients who are treated with the enzyme replacement therapy. And we can see that there is markedly improved reduction in the chitotriosidase level in the patients. By seeing this picture, can we tell that who is the patient? It is very difficult to tell. This beautiful lady, Mrs. ALS, is 35 years old and eldest patient in our cohort. She was started on enzyme replacement therapy in 2010 and shifted to substrate reduction therapy in 2011 and restarted on enzyme replacement therapy in 2016 in view of pregnancy, as the role of miglustat on the pregnancy is not known. So after the uneventful pregnancy, she again shifted to the substrate reduction therapy miglustat. This second patient, FA, was diagnosed with Gaucher disease type 1 at the age of 6 years, and abdominal distension causing the respiratory distress is the main complaint. And ERT was started at the age of 15 years, and after the starting of the therapy, he showed the dramatic improvement with a reduction in splenohepatomegaly, gain in weight, and improvement in the cytopenia. This is the case where we have experienced some management issues. This patient was diagnosed with Gaucher disease type 3 at the 9 years of age, and ERT was started at the 13 years. and hematological parameters improved, but spleen, after the initial reduction in the spleen size, the spleen again enlarged, and this enlarged spleen further diagnosed as a Gaucheromaz. Thrombocytopenia and obsessive compulsive symptoms also noted, and the dose was increased. But at present, there is no significant change in the spleen size, but the obsessive compulsive symptoms have markedly improved without any antipsychotics. Apart from the Gaucher disease, we are giving the enzyme replacement therapy to patients of the MPS 1 and 5 patients of Fabry disease. For the Niemann-Pick disease type C, supply reduction therapy miglustat is available for the mild symptoms, but we are not giving any patient for this Niemann-Pick type C. Now, we would like to thank Sanofi Genzyme and Shire Human Genetic Therapies, as our patients are getting the free medicines as part of their humanitarian program. We would also like to patient and their families for the remain support. Now, I would like to call Seema ma'am for the concluding remarks.
Thank you, Neera. So to conclude, lysosomal storage disorders are rare disorders which are inherited as autosomal recessive disorders. Most of the cases are presented to Department of Pediatric Gastromedicine with hepatosplenomegaly. Bone marrow aspiration and biopsy was performed as per protocol for assessment of hepatosplenomegaly with bicytopenia or pancytopenia in these infants. And once the diagnosis was made, these patients were referred to Department of Genetics for further management. A high index of suspicion is essential for timely diagnosis. So considering the possibility of these disorders in patients with relevant clinical and laboratory findings and confirming the diagnosis by tissue biopsy and enzyme assay help in the appropriate management of these patients. In our study, approximately 1/4 of the patient had positive family history, which reflects the importance of genetic counseling and prenatal diagnosis. So this CGI was presented for greater awareness of these disorders for early diagnosis and the management. Thank you.